Hello and welcome to lesson 1.5. Today in the part 1 video we're going to be looking at adding integers. Before we get started with example 1, I just wanted to review with you what an integer was. Typically we know that we have numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. These here are what we call natural numbers. So natural numbers. When I go and I add the number 0 to it, now I have what we call whole numbers. And if I go and I add, and again, keep in mind here that these are positive numbers. So I have positive numbers here. We have 0. And then when I go and I decide to put in the negative numbers, so once I add in negative numbers such as -1, -2, -3, and so on, then all of these here, the positives, the negatives, and 0, are what we call integers. So I did want to review that before we got started. Now looking at example 1, it says using a number line, and we're given the problem that says on 2 plays, a football team loses 8 yards. So in your head, you should be thinking that when we lose, we have a negative 8 yards. And then they gain or added 3. So it says find -8 plus 3 to find the result of the 2 plays. To use a number line to help us solve this, what we're going to do is we're going to start out with our -8 because it says first we lost 8 yards. So starting out at 0, we're going to jump over here because we lost 8 yards. And then it tells us that we gained 3. Well, gaining 3 means that we're really adding. So when I add 3 yards to my -8, I really end up at -5. So we would say that -8 plus 3 is equal to 5. This is how you would use a number line to help you add and or subtract. Let's take a look at another example. Example 2 says that we have 2 plus a -6. So here's my 0. I'm going to go forward 2 because it's a positive 2. And then we're going to add a -6. So a negative is going to be in the left direction. So I'm going to go 1. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units. So that means I'm going to jump to the left 6 units, which is going to drop me right here at -4. So I know that 2 plus a -6 then is equal to -4. Please take a quick second and try this one on your own, and then start the video back up and see if you were correct. For example 3, we have -4 plus 9. So again, here's our 0. I'm going to move 4 units to the left because we're negative. And then because we're adding a positive 9, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we moved 9 units to the right because 9 is positive. And this is going to drop me right here at a positive 5. So -4 plus 9 equals a positive 5. Okay, now this problem here looks a little different because I'm adding 2 negative numbers, but my process will still be the same. So I'm going to start out plotting my -5. Again, here's 0. So I'm going to go 5 units to the left. And because I'm going to be adding a negative, I'm going to actually move my cursor 1 unit to the left because it's getting more negative. So once I move 1 unit to the left, I'm now at -6. So that means -5 plus a -1 equals a -6. So a couple things that I would like for you to take away from this is 1, if you are adding something that has the same sign, meaning both numbers are positive or both numbers are negative, then the sign of your answer or the sign of your sum is going to be the same sign of the two integers. So if I write this down, let's say I have something like 2 plus 2. This will give me a positive 2. Or I could do something like negative 3 plus a negative 1. Because both of these are a negative, I know that my final answer will also be negative, and then I just add the integers of 3 and 1. So negative 3 plus negative 1 is going to give me a negative 4. Likewise, when I get to sums that have different signs, okay, it says to add two integers with different signs, we're going to find the difference of their absolute values, and the sum has the sign of the integer with a greater absolute value. So if I have something that looks like negative 5 plus 3, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and find the difference of their absolute values. So I'll take the absolute value of a negative 5, and difference means subtract, and I'm going to subtract the absolute value of 3. Now remember, it says the difference, which is why I have this subtraction sign here. I know I'm adding here, but I need to find the difference of their absolute values. So when I subtract, I'm going to end up with the absolute value of a negative 5 is a positive 5 minus 3, and my answer for this is going to be 2. Now the last part of this different sign rule says the sum has the sign of the integer with the greater absolute value. So when I look at my two absolute values, 5 is greater than 3, so when I look at my original problem, this number here inside of the absolute value was a negative, so that tells me that the overall sign of my answer should be negative. So this will be a negative 2, and this is my final answer. Now to confirm this, why don't we go ahead and do a quick number line? Okay, so if I have a number line like this, and we're going to go negative 6, negative 5, negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so I'm going to go negative 5. So if I start out at 0 and I go to the left 5 units, that puts me right here. And then I'm going to add 3, which means I'm moving to the right 3. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. That's going to put me at a negative 2. So our graph confirms what we just found up above. Now our last example for today says to find each sum. So the first thing I do is I look to see what are the signs of my sum. So right here I see I have a negative, and I'm adding that to another negative. So I know that I'm just going to end up doing 12 plus 31. So I really have 12 plus 31, which is going to give me 43. And because both of these have a negative, I know that my sign also has to be negative. Likewise, with part B, I have 7 plus a negative 18. So here what we're going to do is I have two different signs. Okay, in my head, because 18 is a bigger absolute value, I know that my overall sign is going to be negative. And the more you do of these, the easier this will become. But essentially, if you remember, we have to take the absolute value and subtract their differences. So because 18 is bigger, I'm going to do the absolute value of a negative 18, and then I'm going to subtract the absolute value of 7. So the absolute value of a negative 18 is a positive 18 minus the absolute value of 7, which is just 7. So 18 minus 7 is 11. And again, because the greater absolute value is coming from 18, that's my largest integer, that tells me that I have to take the sign of this integer, which happens to be negative. So my answer then will be a negative 11. And for the last one, we have negative 125 plus 35. So in this case, I have, again, two different signs. So here I have a negative, here I have a positive. So I'm going to take the absolute value of a negative 125, and then I'm going to add that to the subtract the absolute value of 35. So this is going to give me 125 minus 35, and this answer here will give me 90. But I'm going to go back and look at the sign of my largest integer. So I see based on my absolute values that 125 is my largest integer. So in my original problem, I see that 125 was negative, which tells me that my overall answer must also be negative. So this is it for the part 1 video. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great day. We'll see you in class.